So for the first part of this section, we've been talking about a lot of the properties that we can use for the actual Flex container. So you can see that we've covered 5 here: the display type, which is to create the container, the direction, wrap, and our content alignment properties. But we haven't actually talked anything about the items themselves because we've just been looking at the container. So that's what we're going to be doing over the next few videos, is looking at some of the properties that we can use on our items themselves to change how they look. And that's when the real power of Flexbox comes in and really shows how it can be used. So the first item that we're going to be covering, or property in this case, is Flex Item Order. Now, instead of adding this directly to the container, we can actually go through and add this to the Flex items themselves. So I'm going to hold Control or Command if you're on Mac and go ahead and add our style property to all 5 of these Flex items, because what we're going to actually have to do is add this property to all of our items. So it seems like a new line was created there. Let's get started. So pretty much what we're going to be doing is using a property to change the positioning, or order in this case, of our Flex items. So I'm going to go ahead and create that multiple cursor feature again. And the property we're going to use is order. Now, what we can do is go ahead and start specifying our order. So pretty much what we're going to do is go through and change what this looks like and how this looks like in our place here. So what we're going to do is go and specify our values, and then instead of having it from A to E, we're actually going to go through and add something to make these properties look in a different way instead of having to actually move all of these around. So instead of moving the divs around and changing all of them, we're actually going to go through and specify some numbers. So let's get started. So what we're going to use for this is numbers. Now, this ranges from 1 all the way up to as many numbers or as many items as you have. Now the default value is 0, and this is just going to keep it in its position, but we can actually specify the number to see where it lands. So let's just say that I want D first. What I'm going to do is go ahead and under my order property, add a 1, just like that. Now I'm going to go ahead and add E. So I'm going to set my order to 2. Now, if you've worked with computers before, you might think that it starts with 0, but in this case, 0 is our default value, so we're not actually going to be using that. So I have D, then E. Now let's say I want B next, so I'm going to put it under the 3rd position. Now for C, or actually A, I'm going to put it as the 4th position, and C is the last. So let's see if this holds up here. We refresh the page, D, E, B, A, C. So you can see that we can actually change the order of these Flex items directly from our CSS instead of having to go through and move them around. Now you might be wondering why this could be useful at all. Now, although it might not be apparent here because we haven't actually gotten or used any JavaScript, once you start making your website interactive, this becomes a very useful feature, because you can't just go through and program something to move the divs around in your HTML document without using some sort of file reading. Instead, it's much easier to just add a style to it where you can change the order, maybe even randomly. So you can see how this would work. And although, like I said, although it may not be useful in this case, it will definitely be useful once you start learning about JavaScript and start making your websites interactive. So that's a little bit about Flex Order. Now, just one thing, you don't actually have to use it with an inline style tag, but it would be much easier considering that if without it, you'd have to go and add an individual class to every single item. Now, of course, it's much easier to just go ahead and add a style tag to each of these, but if you want to use it with a class method, maybe you already have an existing class, you can go ahead and do that. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm just using this because it's a lot more convenient and easy to use. Alright, so that's pretty much it about Flex Order. It's quite easy to learn once you know how to find the positions of items and how you know how to order them in the right way. As long as you know the number of items you have, it's very easy to position them just the way you like it. Alright, let's move on.